بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد اللهم أخرجنا من ظلمات الوهم وأكرمنا بنور الفهم اللهم افتح علينا أبواب رحمتك وانشر علينا خزائن علومك برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين والحمد لله رب العالمين. Welcome to our lesson for today, which is about historical, archival, and oral history research of our course on methods of research in Islamic studies. In the previous lesson, we have already embarked on examining the different types of research usually used or applied in Islamic studies, and we started with scriptural and textual research. And this meeting, we will proceed to another equally important type of research as we use or adapt in Islamic studies, and that is historical, archival, and oral history research. As we begin this lesson, let us ask this question. How can we reconstruct the past without confusing memory with proof? We take into account this question while also expecting that at the end of the lesson we will be able to have the following learning outcomes. One, to explain Islamic historiography and source criticism. Two, plan archival research. Three, use oral history responsibly. And four, recognize post-colonial and ethical problems in Philippine Muslim history. If we try to look at the sources of Islam, the main sources of Islam, we can say that Islamic historiography joined transmission, chronology, and moral meaning. We have so many terms which are important parcels of Islamic historiography. We have the concept of akhbar, which is also synonymous or the other term that we use for hadith, wherein we collect reports about persons, events, and communities. And the sira is where we reconstruct prophetic biography through transmitted materials. And in addition to akhbar and sira, we have also another type, which is tabaqat, where we organize scholarly lives by generation and network. And in doing all those, we also observe chronicle. We also adapt chronicle. That is, we place events in sequence while interpreting causes and consequences. Now, yes, historical evidence survives in records and in people. Some are not written, some are written, but mostly it is unfortunately not written. And for that, we need to acknowledge that no source speaks alone. We have different sources. So the researchers establish provenance, context, purpose, and silence before treating a source as evidence. I remember one of our history lecturers saying that as a historian, we should take note not only of what is written, but also of the silences. Because in many cases, silences speak louder than the written facts. So we have documentary, meaning manuscripts, letters, court and state records. and also newspapers, photographs, maps, and objects, and of course, institutional and family archives. And in addition to those documented sources, we have also oral. In fact, plenty of oral sources that we have and yet to be written and waiting to be written, in fact. So life histories, this include life histories and eyewitness accounts, community memory and genealogies, or what we call as tarsila or silsila, songs, stories, performed tradition, including bayok, for example, or what we call as parahil. Now, when we criticize source, we move from document to defensible claim. So first, we need to authenticate. What is it? We check the origin, we check the authorship, we check the date, we check the version if there are many versions, and we also check the condition of the material, meaning the means or where it is written. Next to authentication, we need to know the context. Why was it made? In answering that, we identify the audience, purpose, vocabulary, and institutional setting. And finally, after authenticating and knowing the context, we try to corroborate. So what else supports it if there is a historical claim? So we compare independent records, testimonies, and timelines. This is what we call as triangulation. Now, in the context of, in our own context, Philippine Muslim archives are dispersed and politically uneven and mostly still considered part of the oral sources. And these Muslim archives that we have, it is colonial, national in nature, local as well as digital. So we have to take a look at these different types of diverse sources of our Muslim archives. So we need to read Spanish American records against their governing aims. And if we would add, especially in the history of Maguindanao, we could also add Dutch language or Dutch records. And also national. So we use official collections while noting marginalization and category bias that stay there for many decades. And of course, we have also local archives. And in getting those, we seek madrasa, sultanate, mosque, clan, and family holdings, usually private or individual holdings. And there are also, little by little, there are also digital Muslim archives of our history. So we use scans and repositories, but we need also to verify provenance and completeness of the documents that are digitalized. Now, take note of this. Different historical approaches, they foreground different questions. When it could be narrative. And if it is narrative, the point is to reconstruct events and change through time. If it is social, it is meant to study ordinary lives, institutions, and collective experience. And if it is an intellectual approach to history, the purpose is to trace concepts, debates, and scholarly networks. And if ever the approach to history is post-colonial, the purpose is no other than examining empire, representation, resistance, and archival silence. Remember, what I have said. In many cases, the silences are louder than the written facts. Now, oral history is a relationship, not a recorded extraction. Why? Because we need to prepare how to get them, to listen, and again to return. So in preparation, we build informed consent. So we clarify use, anonymity, recording, and future access. And we also preserve the narrator's frame. How we ask questions and distinguish memory from verification. And most importantly, to share responsibility by checking sensitive interpretations and return usable copies or findings. Now, when we research conflict, it demands truth without renewed harm. One good example is the 1970s Moro resistance, which would serve as an ethical test case. So when we delve into it, when we embark on it, official files, movement narratives, and survivor testimony may conflict, yes. And the researcher must neither erase violence nor sensationalize it, to narrate it as it is. So we need to take note of two important elements. One is scholarly rigor. By building a multi-source chronology, we should not just rely on one source or one narration. We identify contradiction and uncertainty, and definitely there are. And we separate evidence from inherited narrative of one group. And in addition to scholarly rigor, we need to have extra care by protecting survivors and sensitive identities, by avoiding extracting traumatic testimony, and to name archival absence and researcher limits. That is part of the scope and limitation of the study. And as a final note, we need to triangulate the past. That is, we choose one historical claim and we name two independent source types, and finally we identify one silence or bias. So we need to verify from different sources a historical point or claim that we will encounter or discover. So next meeting, we will proceed to another type of research that we usually undergo in Islamic studies. Thank you so much. Wassalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.